1994, we have a congressional election as opposed to a presidential election. And the really extreme vilification of Bill and Hillary Clinton will amp up energy on the Republican side of the aisle. And in a relatively low turnout election, even by congressional election standards, we will have the Republicans taking over both houses of Congress. Really one of the most dramatic numerical switches in American history, as both the House and the Senate come under Republican control. Newt Gingrich, who becomes Speaker of the House after this election, will have run on this thing called the Contract with America. It pushes for things like increased states' rights, that old mantra the Republicans have had at least since '64 with Goldwater, cuts to Medicare, and it promises term limits. It says the problem is these politicians get in here and they never leave office. In reality, the Republicans do none of these things. They forget about term limits the second they're elected. Apparently, they're not interested in term limiting themselves. They failed to cut Medicare because it's wildly unpopular. And they don't really do much to promote states' rights over the federal government. And so the Contract of America, I think, has to be seen as an unfulfilled contract. Clinton responds to this by moving to the center and announces plans to balance the budget. We were already on that path thanks to the budget that had been passed before, but Clinton now begins to move this as kind of a centerpiece of his legacy. The Republicans see further resistance to Clinton and everything he does and says as the path to greater victory. And in November of 1995, the Republicans are unable to pass a budget in the House, which of course they control by substantial numbers. And the government shuts down. The Republicans apparently gambled that this would somehow reflect more negatively on Clinton than it would on them, but they're wrong. Their support for the Republicans in Congress absolutely collapses. In January of '96, it happens again. They passed a budget that only ran for 2 months, and then they failed to pass a budget again in January, and the government shuts down again. And this will severely undermine support for Newt Gingrich and his kind of new right coalition. And the rightward drift kind of comes to an end for now. By 1996, the economy is booming. Gingrich and the conservatives have become to be seen by many Americans as extremists. They're blamed for the government shutdown, which is extremely unpopular. People didn't get their Social Security checks. The Social Security checks were threatened anyway. Military pay was threatened. I was annoyed because I went to Washington, D.C., and the Smithsonian was shut down. It was pretty bad. This will lead to one of the least interesting elections in American history, I think. It is a landslide. Everybody knows from the get-go that Clinton is going to win by huge numbers, and he crushes his Republican opponent, Bob Dole. As the 104th Congress is ending, and the Republicans have lost seats in both the House and the Senate, they come to the realization they really haven't passed any significant legislation. This great Republican revolution has, as of the fall of '96, really accomplished nothing legislatively. And they try to push through a flurry of bills to claim a Republican legacy for this revolution that they've had. The most significant one will be welfare reform, which essentially takes the decisions about how to administer welfare and transfers those decisions from the federal government to the state governments. And the net effect of all of this will be to shift a lot of benefits, particularly unemployment, from the unemployed more to the working poor. A lot of these benefits now become tied to having a job or seeking a job. Clinton is a partner in this. He helps craft this bill, supports it, and does sign it. In the end, after the '96 election, the Republicans have been significantly cowed. What had looked like this major political revolution after the '94 elections seems to have stalled out quite a bit and lost quite a bit of support. But Clinton, who had moved to the center after the Democratic losses in '94, will stay centrist, really, for pretty much the rest of his time in office. Clinton does begin to get a lot of credit, though, for having balanced the budget. No longer is the government spending more money than it's taking in. Clinton's popularity is rising thanks to the booming economy and generally being at peace with the world. No Cold War. Republicans continue to seek some way to bring down Clinton. The sprawling investigation into a land deal called Whitewater, which the Clintons will ultimately be cleared of any wrongdoing in, will reveal that Clinton apparently had an affair with a White House intern named Monica Lewinsky. Clinton will have also lied about this affair in his deposition in another case, the Paula Jones case. Now, whether or not this is technically perjury becomes a complicated issue because the Paula Jones case was thrown out and you can't commit perjury in a case that doesn't come to trial. But nonetheless, Republicans in Congress seeking some way to bring down this popular president will push for an investigation into Bill Clinton's sex life. Ken Starr will be appointed the special prosecutor here and will issue a truly enormous number of subpoenas and hold endless hearings. Bill Clinton is almost inarguably the most investigated man in the history of the world. Clinton denies there was ever any affair, and his popularity continues to remain high. But when Monica Lewinsky agrees to testify before Congress, Clinton goes ahead and admits that he did have sexual relations with that woman. Of course, this is tremendously embarrassing for Clinton. Not only has he cheated on his wife, but he lied about it. And the country enters into a great debate over is this a legitimate reason for impeachment. The Constitution says government officials can be removed from office for high crimes and misdemeanors. And conservatives, of course, insist that lying about your sex life is a high crime and misdemeanor, which you should be removed from office for, while not all, but most Democrats insist that this is not the kind of activity that our founding fathers were referring to. Now, this is a great cartoon showing Clinton's popularity based largely on the massively booming economy, but of course his presidency threatened by scandal. On December 9th, 1998, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives votes to impeach Clinton. It is a politically charged moment. It is virtually only Republicans backing the impeachment. That means that there's now going to be a trial in the Senate to decide whether or not Clinton will be removed from office. There's two charges in the impeachment filings. Neither one of them get even a majority of support in the Senate, much less the 2/3 vote that would require to move Clinton from office. After 1998, Clinton has to face the reality that Congress is so immovably opposed to him on political grounds that he will not be able to accomplish much more on his domestic agenda. So like most presidents do when they're stymied in Congress, he looks overseas to leave his mark. UN troops will be used to end the civil war in Kosovo. Clinton is one of the major driving forces behind this. This is the second time America gets involved in the Balkans during this period, the Bosnian Civil War being the first. Both of these are UN actions. Clinton will end, despite his personal scandals, as one of the most popular presidents in history. Particularly during his second term, during the impeachment hearings and all that, Clinton's popularity remains consistently high. And for many Americans, the period of Clinton's presidency, 93 to 2000, is looked back on as kind of a modern golden age of peace and prosperity. We moved our budget into surplus, began paying down some of our debt. We had massive economic growth, and we were not involved in any major military operations in foreign countries.